What's happening, people? Welcome to another episode of NY Giants Rush, where we talk about Giants football for 52 weeks of the year. Yes, we do. And, you know, we're the podcast you love to hate. We're here every Monday, 8 o'clock, tuning in. And as promised, I've got another great show for you guys. We got Paul Dottino in the house. Of course, I got the truth. I've got Chris. We're going to talk about pretty much everything because you guys have been cranking it up all week long on camp, what happened against the Panthers, Waller, Jones, all a bunch of great things to talk about. So let's bring in the guys. And, of course, we want to thank, our sponsor, the Chuck app. So if you want all your sports in one area, Chuck app, download it right now. And, by the way, the best part of the Chuck app, even though it aggregates all your sports in one area, is the daily trivia. If you want to play against me, it's called Chuckle. Sports trivia every single day. If you think you know more sports than me, which is possible, very possible that you do. 70s baseball and 70s basketball are not my forte. So outside of that, I can hang with most of you cats. So download the Chuck app, aggregates all your sports in one area. I see you guys are piling in the room, so let's bring in the boys. There's Truth. Truth, how are you?
How you doing? This is an exciting day, guys.
I know it's an exciting day because you're talking to me. I know you can't control yourself, but that's okay. Paul's here, and he's way more exciting than me. Let's bring in Nails and his biceps. Chris, how are you?
Hey, Craig. Hey, Mike.
You don't think I'm going to let you go a week without a bicep joke, do you?
You're terrible. Come on.
I know.
You gotta let that go now.
You know, I'm never letting it go. All right, the man of the hour. Let's bring in Paul. He's always good to us. Let's bring in Paul. Paul, how are you?
Good to talk to you, fellas. It's been quite a fun training camp.
Yeah, of course it has. And, we try to bring you on every couple months. We get better, kind of a better idea what's really happening, as we talked a little bit before the show. A lot of stuff out there that people have been chirping about all year, right? And it turned out to be okay. The fans got stressed out. A lot of stuff out there that was being thrown around. So you've covered the team for a long year. Tell me you're not just a little bit excited about the regime and these young players.
Well, Craig, I think to be fair, it's the best 90-man summer training camp roster the Giants have had since the 2011 Super Bowl season. Now, that does not mean they're going to the Super Bowl, and it certainly doesn't mean they're going to win it.
Yep.
But when I tell you that this is the most talent they've had on the field since then, it should give you a good indication that I believe the Giants will be right in the playoff hunt until the very last week of the regular season. Obviously, they play Philadelphia in 2 of the final 3 games.
Yeah.
We don't know how that will play out, whether the division title will still be up for grabs or whether they'll be trying to lock down a wild card spot. But it's very hard for me to believe that this Giants team will not be a strong playoff contender.
No, that's kind of what I was kind of leaning on. I hope that you would say, because you've seen a lot of football. Like, this regime feels different. These players are exciting. Here's the question I have for you, and Chris and I were talking about this earlier in the week. Let's just start off with the overarching Giants organization. What's different? Why is it different? Because last year was the first year, right? You didn't know what to expect. Now we're in year 2. What's making this regime and their mission, their goal, what's different?
Well, I think when you look at how the Giants have improved from the 2022 season, the first thing you do is just look at the pure talent on the roster. They've got more explosiveness and speed on both sides of the ball. You also have that everlasting word that everybody talks about when you have the same coaching staff return, and that is comfort and familiarity and confidence in what you're doing, because you no longer have to think about what you're doing. It becomes instinctive. And so all these guys who went to a playoff appearance last season are all talking about, well, you know what? We don't have to think about what we're doing anymore because Dable and Kafka and Martindale were all new last year. Now we already know what we're doing. Now we can spend more of our energy and our time concentrating on the opponent, which makes players play faster. So that basically is, when you get down to the core of the apple, that's the biggest difference in this team. It is an improved roster with a team that should be more confident and more assertive. So I don't think there's much doubt, all things being equal, unless they get ravaged by terrible injury bug stuff, this is going to be a better team. It's a better team. So, they won 9 games last year. They have a tougher schedule this year. So they had to be a better team if they were going to win 9 again this year. I'm not ready quite yet to put a win prediction out there, but I will tell you, it's going to be a better 53 than they had last season.
Love it. And there's 2 specific rooms that are causing a lot of buzz: the receiver room and the defensive back room, right? Because they've got better talent, they've got bigger, faster players, right? A lot of buzz. Like, and Chris, were we not having this conversation earlier in the week about, like, this receiver room is really deep and who they're going to keep, right, Chris? Like, it's going to be hard for these guys.
Not only the receiver room, but you look at multiple positions, the depth, it's so many positions, unlike past years, they actually have depth. And I think we mentioned also, Craig, and Paul, you could jump in past seasons, we saw that 53 that was selected on the last day of cuts. And that 53 always tends to not be the 53 because the Giants seem to hit that waiver wire. And in the past, we've seen 5 or 6 guys now come onto the team over the waiver wire. But I got to say, this year, we might be only looking at 1 or 2 guys extending that 53, after next Tuesday. That just shows you that depth is there this year.
Chris, there may be 3, 4, 5, 6 players that the Giants waive that other teams are going to pick up this year.
Oh, no doubt.
That's how strong this team is. They've got more than 53 guys capable of playing winning football in the National Football League. Okay, that's just a fact. They've got too many guys now. And I haven't been able to say that for a very, very long time. And to be frank with you, Craig, I think you're selling them short. I think the tight end room right now is causing a lot of buzz because of Darren Waller. I think the linebacker room is causing a lot of buzz because of Bobby Okereke.
100%. And I didn't mean to sell them short. I'm thinking it as we had high expectations, right? That Waller was going to be great. We knew he'd been great in the past. We knew Okereke had been great in the past. This receiver room, this DB room, we're pleasantly surprised on the play of some of these characters. And I'm going to ask you and then Michael jump in. Just starting in that receiver room, Paul, how many are they going to carry? I mean, there's going to be some hard cuts in that room. There's some really good, players where we just didn't have that type of talent last year. How many can they carry?
I've got them carrying 6. I made my 53 after the Panthers game the other day.
Ooh.
And 49 were easy. The last 4 were very difficult.
Okay.
And then I've got a bunch of guys that I want on my practice squad, and I just hope to hell that they clear waivers. but I've got 6 on my 53 at wide receiver.
Are you allowed to tell us who?
The only thing I would say, I'm sorry?
Are you allowed to tell us who?
I mean, I guess.
If we twist your arm a little bit.
Well, I had to think about that.
My 53 may not be Joe Shane's 53. You
understand? I got that. But we're friends. You can share.
I don't play games. Like the writers will play games, and they'll try to predict what the team's going to do. But everybody who has half a brain knows that the writers can't predict what the Giants are going to do because nobody is in that front office. Not even the fly on the wall can tell you what Joe Shane's going to do. So what I do is I make my 53. And you know, I've got logical reasons for all my guys. My receivers are Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, Hyatt, Shepard, and Beasley. Those are my 6 receivers.
I got to tell you, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm feeling pretty good right now because that was my.
Now, Robinson is PUP for me, which means he's got to miss at least 4 games.
Yep.
Okay. And it really came down to the last spot for me came down to either Cole Beasley or Jamison Crowder. And I went with Beasley. And I hope that his aching leg is not serious because Crowder deserves to play in this league. And I think he's probably going to get scapped up by somebody. If he doesn't, I certainly hope he's on practice squad. I certainly hope that Colin Johnson is on practice squad. I hope Ford Wheaton is on practice squad. You know, I hope Sills comes back to the practice squad also. I mean, they have so many receivers that are capable of making a 53-man roster. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Go ahead, Truth. Jump in.
Well, I was thinking 7 possibly, but 6 seems to be the common number they're going to keep. I sure hope Paul just leaned about Johnson and Ford Wheaton. I do not see them getting it past waivers and getting to the practice squad. I think someone's going to grab those 2 guys, big guys who have some speed and catch the football. I don't see those 2 guys making it.
Well, here's what will give you some hope. Okay? Here's what will give you some hope. Colin Johnson missed the game last week and missed a little bit of practice time because he's got a sore knee. So you could argue that he is somewhat nicked up and somewhat damaged. And so that may lead a team to shy away from him.
Yeah, kind of like the Victor Cruz injury, right?
You know, I mean, he doesn't have a very substantial resume. And so because he's nicked up, teams may shy away from him. I think he's a quality player, and I certainly don't want to lose him. Ford Wheaton had 2 opportunities to make plays in Detroit and failed on both. Yep. Okay? There were some inconsistencies in his hands at West Virginia. That was one of the reasons why he did not get drafted. Now, the other day, all right, he caught a ball or 2, I believe, against Carolina, as I recall.
Good. Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, as early in the camp, he looked really good, right? And all the writers were goo-goo and gaga all over him. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, that's wonderful. But he gets into the preseason game in Detroit, and he did not make 2 plays that were very makeable. And that carries a lot of weight. Sure. And to the folks who did not draft him, 32 teams that did not draft him, that's why they did not draft him. I think there's a chance he gets through.
Okay. Real quick, in the NFL, can't they, and I think they have done this, they put somebody on an injury just so they don't have to put them through the waiver to get to the practice squad? Do they do that? Could they do that with Johnson?
No. What if a guy, you can't fake an injury. The guy has to be actually injured. Then you put him on the injured reserve list before the 53 and he's out for the season. Now, some finagling you could do if you wanted to. Okay. Let's say there's a guy who you want to put on the injured list. Okay. But you don't want to lose him for the season. So what you do is you got to keep him on your 53. You got to cut somebody else. And then the next day after the 53 is announced, you then put one of that guy on the injured list and say, all right, he's out for 4 weeks on injured reserve. And then I will bring this other guy back. But you got to hope he doesn't get taken or doesn't sign anywhere. Now, I'll give you a great example. All right. There's a lot of finagling that can go on. And I'm not saying the Giants are going to do this. Okay, I'm not saying that. But let's say, for example, all right, the Giants decided that they were a little scared about somebody getting through, or they were a little bit timid about somebody being on the 53. They could very easily, all right, go to somebody, a veteran, like a Cole Beasley, like a Sterling Shepard, and say, hey, you're a veteran. You don't have to clear waivers. You become a street free agent when we cut you. They could go to a player like that and make a procedural move. That is, they could keep another guy on the roster, okay, that they need who may be dinged up. For example, someone like Ryder Anderson, who they like on the depth chart at the defensive line spot.
Okay.
But he's been dinged up the last couple of weeks, right, fellas?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe they want to keep him, but they don't want to stick him on IR for the season and lose him. So what you do is you keep a Ryder Anderson on the team. You cut maybe a Cole Beasley or a Sterling Shepard with a wink, wink, and a handshake that says, stay by your phone because tomorrow morning we're going to put Ryder Anderson on injury reserve for 4 weeks, and we're bringing you back on our active 53. That's the kind of shenanigans that teams can use to manipulate the roster.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
How many teams are actually participate in that practice? A lot or a few?
Probably all of them.
Anybody who has circumstances that will allow them to do so would be an idiot not to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you like about the room, Paul? Beside the speed, right? We all know there is an increased, I mean, we have not had 1 hour go by that someone has not written, spoke about, tweeted about how fast high it is. Outside the speed, what do you like about the additions of Campbell, Hyatt, Waller, Beasley? Like, there's got to be some kind of common denominator there besides speed.
2, hands and route running.
Okay.
This room has increased its hands and route running quotient at least threefold. I'll give you an example, fellas. Over the last few years, I would go out to practice during the off season, whether it be the mini camp or the spring passing drills or just the July training, August training camp. And you'd see maybe 3 or 4 drops a day. A day.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. Not anymore. I think in team drills, since the spring started, this wide receiver tight ends room may have a total of 10 drops altogether.
Yeah.
That's how much better they are in terms of their hands, and their route running is ridiculous. Campbell is outstanding. Hodgins is terrific. I can't say enough about what a surprise Hyatt has been with his route running. And Darren Waller, my God, this guy is a pro's pro. He's everything that they wanted Evan Ingram to be, but turned out not to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because, you could see the separation they got in the Panthers game. That wasn't by accident, right? That was just running really crisp routes, getting in and out of breaks. Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want to denigrate Evan Ingram as a pro's pro because he was also. I don't want to say that Waller is and Ingram wasn't. But Ingram just didn't seem to have the consistency either with his hands or his ability to get free.
Yep.
Waller does that like on every play. I swear to you, if they wanted to, if they did, they could go 8 plays, 80 yards, and every single play on the series could be a pass to Waller.
My God, that would be absolutely insane if that actually happened. And if it does, we're going to have to remember, hey, Paul told us on Giants Rush that was going to happen.
We were halfway there on Friday night. I mean, we were with Waller. We were halfway there.
Chris, you know what? I actually, and I know everyone looks at the rule a little bit different. I thought it was a catch and a fumble. I thought he actually had possession of the ball. I know like there's that little gray area if he took a step or he didn't take a step.
Football move.
You gotta
I know.
hold the ball through the completion of the play.
Yeah.
It's a rule that I have a lot of difficulty with, but it was incomplete.
All right, so I'm not alone in the not liking the definition there.
Well, there are a lot of rules in the NFL that I'm not very fond of, but I can't fix the league by myself.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And in fact, I'd be more than glad to help you, but I doubt you'd get any further with or without me. Go ahead, Chris, jump in.
Yeah. Paul, moving to the defensive tackle position, this Jordan Riley, who really jumped around with a few schools, ended up at Oregon, really was just an afterthought as, being picked up in the late rounds. But being a run stopper, and he's only 320, I would say only 325 pounds, where Snacks Damian Harrison was about 340. Similar, type, both run stoppers. I can't help, but he reminds me a little bit of a Damian Harrison because this guy's main focus is to hit the gaps and stop the run. And I feel like he's been such a surprise and going to be such a depth piece at that defensive tackle position.
Are you old enough to remember Curtis McGriff?
Yes, absolutely. I had his football card, matter of fact.
Guilty.
I'm just checking. When Curtis McGriff came into the league, I recall he was originally a defensive tackle. And he was a big wide body who held the point of attack, was very physical, and helped gobble up the run. And that's what I see in Jordan Riley. Now, this is a guy who went to 4 different colleges during the course of his NCAA career. And it's clear to me, as I watch what's happened with him during this camp, is that he has taken to the Giants coaches. They have found a way to teach him things and to bring out the best in him to where he looks like, the way that he has played over the course of the last couple of weeks, I don't want to say they didn't need to sign Ashawn Robinson or Nacho because they had to get depth at the defensive tackle spot. And those 2 veterans are really quality depth who they are thrilled that they've got. But I will tell you, they signed both of those guys because they really didn't know that they had anything behind them. They didn't know they were going to pick up a guy like Jordan Riley, who actually appears to be good enough that he could have been a second stringer if they hadn't gotten the other veterans who clearly are ahead of him on the depth chart. But I think you got a player here who has shown maturity and has shown coachability. And I can't say enough about this coaching staff because we've seen now over a full season and a training camp how this coaching staff seems to be able to get the best out of players, no matter what position we're talking about. This staff maximizes what those guys bring to the table. And you can't say enough about Dable for being able to put these guys together.
Yeah, like Coach Patterson, right, Paul? It seems like anybody he gets to work with plays above and beyond what you actually thought his capabilities might be when you get that low on the depth chart. He's done a great job with these guys on the lower end of the roster at the defensive line.
It's a huge key, and that's why I tell people all the time, the coaching staff is so under the radar, but it's a very important component. And when you talk to people around the league, they will all tell you how much respect they have for each one of these guys, whether it's Coach Henderson or Coach Bischoff. We all know about the 2 coordinators, Martindale and Kafka, and T-Mac has a lot of respect around the league, but the position coaches too have a tremendous amount of cachet around the NFL, and it shows.
I've got a question. I don't mean to digress a second, but I wanted to get this in before, and I forgot when we were talking a little bit about wide receivers. Paul, you have Beasley as your number 6, right? And
I've got him on my 6, yes.
We all kind of know what Beasley is, what kind of player he is. Again, he's a little bit on the older side, but I'm assuming he's got some fairly fresh legs since he didn't play a lot of ball last year.
Right.
Is this purely like Dable being like, this guy knows me, I know him, he knows me, it's a good fit, or was it more of a insurance piece with Robinson being on PUP and having no idea what Shepard would be? Because remember, he had to clear, right? He had to get help clear his physical. So
yeah.
So was Beasley originally like an insurance piece, and then they were like, whoa, he can still play? Or did they know he could still play this whole time?
I think it's both of those things and a third factor to add on to it. if you want to be more explosive and you want to be able to go downfield with the kind of targets that the Giants will put in the lineup, Beasley is the perfect guy who can work underneath because there's going to be a lot of traffic heading downfield. I mean, when you think about Waller and Hodgins and Slayton, Campbell can get downfield. Make no mistake about it, guys. Even though he's playing a lot of slot during this particular offseason, Campbell has speed too. And God knows Hyatt gets downfield. So they've got a bunch of guys who can stretch the field. Beasley is such a technician. He's unstoppable when he works underneath. And when you give him that extra space, because the other guys are going to be attracting the other defenders 15, 20, 25 yards downfield, Beasley's going to have a field day. So I think that's the third reason that he's here.
And is there any type of, like, again, I'm not trying to fish. It sounds like I'm fishing, but then what do you do when Robinson comes off pup? It's still okay to have three guys that do the same thing? There's only so many balls to go around.
Well, see, here's the thing that we don't know. Robinson, had the knee surgery last December. I've always told people on Big Blue Kickoff and everywhere else that I've been, I've always said, listen, don't count on him or Shepard for week 1 of the regular season. You got to be conservative here and suspect that both of those guys could be pumped. Well, somehow Sterling Shepard, I don't know how he did it, but he was so far ahead of schedule. And here he is now, even though they're pacing him, he's been able to do things in camp that show he can still play. God bless him for being able to do that. Okay?
Yeah.
And everybody in the building loves him. They all love him. And why not? Excuse me, why not?
It's really hard that he pulls it together.
And Wandale is close. The Giants have said as much. He's close. But remember, if they keep him on pup, he's got to miss 4 weeks.
Yeah.
All right? 4 weeks. That's the minimum on pup is 4 weeks. So by the time 4 weeks go by, who's to say? I don't want to jinx anybody, Craig, but who's to say that receivers are going to be healthy?
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
So that'll work itself out. Now, they could surprise me, and tomorrow they could activate Wan'Dale Robinson off a pup. They might do that. I don't know that they're going to do that, but supposedly he's getting close. If they do, it certainly creates another problem with the roster. There's no doubt.
Yeah. It's a good problem.
It is. It is. Now, what I don't know is how sore is Beasley's leg? He wound up coming up with a sore leg the other day, and he's missed a couple of practices now. What I don't know is, because nobody's saying, how sore is that leg? Is that something that could potentially sidetrack his comeback? Or is it just he's been dehydrated, he's got some cramping, he's got a little strain, and it's like, you know what? Sit out a few days. We're going to want you on the 53 anyway. Just take it easy. You don't have anything to prove to us. I don't know what that is.
I was I was impressed during the Panthers game. Chris, I don't know if you picked up on it. Did you see Beasley sitting next to Jones? Looking over.
It was tough because I was at the game in the lower bowl in the corner, but no, I didn't. I might have a clip of it.
Because I didn't
Beasley,
go to the game.
He coaches everybody up.
We're hearing,
He coaches everybody up. Davo was telling us the other day, not only does he coach all the receivers up, you got to see Barkley going up to him, asking him for advice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This guy is incredibly valuable. And look, I've watched him every day at practice. Okay? You can't cover him. Inside of 12 yards, he can't be covered. He is so smart. He is so crafty. The way he sets defenders up, he cannot be covered. He will get 2.5 to 3 yards of separation on a 7-yard pass. Who does that in this league?
Nobody.
God knows.
Well, not many.
For 7 years, he destroyed the Giants.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He did. He destroyed the Giants. I just was impressed. He's in street clothes. He's sitting on the bench next to Jones, and they got the tablet out, and they're looking at stuff. And I was like, look at Beasley. He's fitting right in like a coach.
I know. I mean, I find it hard to believe. I can't keep him off my 53. Now, unless that leg is worse than we think, and there's something going on there that's going to sidetrack him, I have to put him on my 53.
Okay. All right. Hey, Truth, jump in. Because I know you got some defense you probably want to talk about, right?
Yeah. I watched the game like everybody else did. I was very impressed with a lot of guys who continue to shine, as you spoke about the secondary. But I also like the kid Beavers. He did a good job on a few plays. I watched him, and I want to ask Paul what he thinks his role is going to be. Will he be strictly inside, or would you think Wink will move him around a little bit?
Well, Beavers right now is behind McFadden on the depth chart to play next to Bobby Okereke. Wink told us that the other day, and it's apparent that they were trying to be very judicious in bringing Beavers back off of last year's injury. That was a very big deal. I mean, he had a great camp last year, and then he gets hurt in the preseason. And look, I thought he was the steal of the draft for the Giants last year. I really did. I thought he was going to start week 1 last season.
Yes.
I was convinced that he was going to be a starter week 1.
Yes.
I was so happy to get him out of Cincinnati. And then he got hurt, and that was the end of that. So when he comes back this year, they're being very cautious and careful. They're trying to pace him a little bit. They're not going all out. And McFadden showed a lot of mental improvement and also, again, more assertive, more confident, playing faster. So it just so happened that his year 2 improvement matched the timing of Beavers kind of being worked in slowly. So when they were giving both guys reps, McFadden was making the most out of it, and he's moved ahead of Beavers on the depth chart. I don't know right now how long McFadden's going to be able to hold off that charge. I think at some point, Beavers is going to make a very strong run at taking that job back. I just don't know how many games it's going to be. Now, what I will tell you is this. Because of Bobby Okereke's versatility, and it boggled my mind, the writers were shocked a couple of weeks ago when they saw Okereke line up on the edge a couple of times. Well, if you know anything about this guy's career, when he was in Indianapolis, he played a full season as an outside linebacker. And then he also played a middle linebacker. So he has had that kind of versatility his entire career. And I was talking to Bobby when he got here. And I said, man, you're going to love Wink Martindale's system because I've dubbed it the kaleidoscope defense. You never know what you're going to see. You never know what you're going to get. And it's going to look different every single time. I said, you're going to fit in great here because he's going to move you all around. I don't think they will use him as often or in as many necessarily places as Micah Parsons does for the Cowboys. But I think you will see Okereke show his versatility, not to the degree of Parsons, because Parsons rushes an awful lot more than I think Okereke will. But Okereke is going to be part-time rush linebacker, and he can blitz through any of the gaps. He can come off the edge, or he can go A, B, or C. He's that versatile. So with that versatility, it doesn't make sense to put Beavers into an outside role. It seems to me that if he does beat out McFadden at some point, he's going to be the stationary guy, and Okereke is going to be the guy who's moving around like a joker.
So that's pretty interesting because we interviewed McFadden 3-4 weeks ago, and he had mentioned in college he just basically hit the gaps. Like he was a blitzing downhill,
straight ahead downhill backer.
Yeah. So if you think about it, and again I'm pontificating upon their athletic ability. If McFadden is a downhill 2-down linebacker, A and the B gap, right? And then Okereke can go from sideline to sideline. I mean, Beavers could also probably spell outside off-ball linebacker too because he's good in space. So there probably could be a role for all three of them. I mean, at some point, I don't know if it's a clear cut McFadden wins the job or Beavers wins the job, I think they could probably, like you mentioned, all these different packages and sub packages they have. I'd assume there might be even opportunity that all three of them are on the field at the same time.
Well, Beavers is more of a thumper than I think the other two guys. If you just look at his frame,
Yeah.
okay, he's got some more. So he's a little huskier. He's got a little more thickness to him.
Sure.
You know,
And height.
he's more. Yeah, he's sturdy, for lack of a better term. He's more sturdy than the other two guys. Now that doesn't mean that Okereke doesn't pack a punch, because he hits people. All right, Okereke in a lot of ways reminds me of Antonio Pierce, but with super versatility and athleticism.
Yep, that's a pretty nice compliment for Okereke.
Well, he's very smart, and so is Pierce. He's shown leadership skills, and he's very vocal. Okay, and he's going to be the guy in the heart of the defense. So in some ways, he is like Pierce, and he's built the same way as Pierce too.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot more range and versatility than Pierce had. You know, you weren't going to do the kinds of things that you're going to do with Okereke. You wouldn't have even thought about doing that with Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, and Paul, look like the other night he was calling the defense the other night, wasn't he? With the from silence. So he looks like he might be the guy, not McKinney.
And that's fine, because that's the kind of guy he is.
Right. No, I agree. That just goes to show his leadership skills and knowing the defense and getting everybody where they need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pierce. I was looking at Jay's comment that Pierce wasn't athletic, but he was brilliant. He was a student of the game. I can remember numerous occasions him calling out plays, as he was lined up, calling out screens before the play even started, because how much of film work he had done, all week long, sniffing out, running back screens and center screens ahead of time. So it was always a pleasure to watch Pierce, but that came from hours and hours of, studying the film. Like some guys don't love film work, right? And it shows. Pierce was always the guy to make sure he put in the extra work. So I'm assuming Okereke could do that too.
Again, just saying that he's got some of Pierce's traits is a tremendous compliment.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, well, let's shift to the DBs, Paul, because holy smoke, did we not see any of this coming? All right, so I wrote it down on here because I wanted to make sure I asked you, today, I think it was today, early this morning, Rodarius Williams got cut. So that definitely opens up maybe a little bit of room for somebody. Who are you keeping? Who's playing what spot? Because you got Robinson playing slot now inside. Hawkins, which is an unbelievable find, right? Second player ever drafted out of ODU. We already had the first player drafted out of ODU with the X-Man there. Yeah, Zimmez. And I know he's still on the team. I don't know if he makes the team, but Hawkins is a huge surprise. Flot's, been a little bit dinged up. Like, where does this unit sit, Paul? Because it's kind of getting interesting, because Chris and I spoke the other day. We all want McKinney on the team, but you've also got some safeties with Belton and Pinnock that if McKinney had to walk next year, it wouldn't be like you didn't have some backups to take the spot.
Yeah, I've got 11 defensive backs on my 53.
Ooh, okay.
There's a lot of talent back there. And here's the issue, okay? Here's where it gets sticky. Nick McLeod is probably the best gunner holding over from the 2022 team.
Yeah.
And the problem is he's hurt right now. And this is where it gets sticky, because McLeod showed that he could play a competent corner in this league. Earlier in the offseason, they tried him at safety, and he looked like he had some versatility to do that as well. So you figure you got a guy who can play corner, he can also play safety, and we know that he's a good gunner on special teams.
Yep.
That's a guy you got to keep on your 53, right?
But now
he's hurt. Yeah. But he's been hurt for the last 2 weeks. What do you do with him? I think he's on my 53 because I can't ignore that value. He's too important. So I have McLeod making it as one of my 11. The PUP list also includes Aaron Robinson, who I've always believed that had he been able to come back from his knee injury sooner, he would have challenged for a starting job. I believe that.
Okay.
But that's not the case. In fact, he hasn't done anything except work with the trainers.
Yeah.
He's done some running on the side, but obviously he's going to wind up being PUP, which is all the better for the Giants because when he's eligible to come off PUP, they're going to have themselves a talented cornerback to add to their mix if they want to.
Yep.
So, people should not forget about him. Aaron Robinson is a very talented boundary corner. People remember that when he got to the Giants, they were desperate for a slot. So they threw him in there. He does not belong in the slot. That's not his best position. He is a boundary corner. And when he comes back, that's what he will be. So he will just enhance the depth in case, for example, Banks or Hawkins have some rookie jitters and have some bumps in the road, and maybe they need to take a seat for a couple of games because, they need to take a breath, or if one of those guys gets dinged up. I'm not forgetting about Aaron Robinson, and I think people would be foolish to do so.
Chris,
Now,
you mentioned
the safety spot. Just don't forget Javarius Owens, because he's also on my 53.
okay.
I've got him as one of my 11 defensive backs.
Because the special team play?
There's no question. Right now, he's going to have to help out on special teams because, see, the Giants, in my opinion, right now have two things and only two things that concern me going into the Dallas game. Number one is that the starting offensive line, the starting five that I project, has not had a lot of time together to gel. But that's just the way it is in training camp, fellas, because they don't hit a lot and they don't have a lot of preseason snaps.
Yep.
So
gotta love the CBA.
That's just what it is.
Yep.
Okay? We can't go back to the Parcells era. The NFL won't let us.
We can't even go back to the Coughlin era.
Exactly. Okay? So that's an issue. And there's nothing that's going to make me feel great about that until I see these guys play together opening night in Dallas. And by the way, Dan Quinn is going to throw the kitchen sink at them and test them early and often.
Yep.
So that's one thing that's kind of got me thinking in the back of my mind. The second thing,
Chris has a favorite though. Chris, who's your guy?
Yeah, no, I did in the beginning, but he hasn't done much. I thought with the signing, Paul, Bobby McCain, I looked at his career in Washington, Miami. I thought he'd fit right in. But it looks like he could be the odd man out, unless you're saying you're going to carry 5 safeties, or are you saying that it comes down to Owens and McCain for that 4th spot? Because I got to think
my 11 defensive backs are Hawkins, Pinnock, McKinney, Banks, Jackson, Oruwariye, Belton, McLeod, Flott, and Owens and McCain.
So
those are my 11.
Okay, so is that 5 safeties? On paper.
Pinnock, McKinney, Belton, Owens, and McCain. That's 5.
Okay, so we're going with 5 safeties. Okay.
I didn't hear you mention Darnell Holmes. I didn't hear you say his name, right?
I don't have Holmes making the team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, he's a little grabby.
Here's the problem, guys. Darnell Holmes has been inconsistent. I went into training camp saying that nobody has seized the slot position away from him. He was the most accomplished slot that they had going into the training camp. And so far in this preseason, he's done nothing to solidify the spot. He's also making $3 million on the cap, and the Giants have only about $3.3 million of room right now.
And no dead money.
So given the economics, plus the fact that he has not overwhelmingly seized the job, that makes him the odd man out for me. So my corners are Banks, Jackson, Hawkins, Oyuwarie, Flott. And remember, I'm looking at McLeod as a swing guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I get my 11.
And Paul, who do you like at that slot corner if Adoree gets banged up and you're not going to switch? Darnay's on a team. Who do you like next in line? Would that be an Arway on that? Who would be next in line after Adoree?
Right now, the bad news is right now it may have to be Flott. And I like Flott more as a boundary corner than I do as a slot. It is not his best position. It is just
after
not.
After next Tuesday, I think that's if you agree, that might be a spot for us all to watch as these other cuts are coming down, these 1,100 guys around the league. That could definitely be a spot there at that slot corner that the Giants possibly make a pick up.
Well, the other guy who's got some experience is McCain. McCain has played some slot in his NFL career.
Right.
So he could potentially also be a backup there as well. Again, I think Flott's best position is boundary. But if they need him in slot, just like Aaron Robinson a couple of years ago, he played slot. He was out of position, but they needed him.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You got to do what you got to do.
Right.
I think a pass rusher possibly could be one in the waiver wire too.
That's a good segue, Truth, because there's all these rumors that the Giants are looking at making a trade, Paul, with, again, just rumors, of course, but with Detroit for a pass rusher. Any rumor, any truth to any of this that's going around that the Giants are looking at signing? What do you call his brother?
Aquara.
Aquara's brother.
Romeo or Julian?
Romeo.
I believe it was Julian, the linebacker, edge.
Julian.
Let me say this. All right, Brandon Brown, the assistant GM who spoke to the media today, was very forthright. He said, "Look, we're doing due diligence on everybody. Right. We got a board, just like a draft board, that's set up in the Giants' war room." And I use that term loosely. I know a lot of people don't like to use it. So I'll just say in the Giants' personnel room. How about we go there?
Sure.
I want to be politically correct.
Yeah.
Fine.
So in the Giants' personnel room, they have a board set up, much like the draft board, which includes bubble guys around the league. Awesome. So it's about guys who either have the potential to be cut or possibly traded. And that board is constantly being looked at every single day. And their scouts are analyzing what these guys are doing during the preseason, who's getting reps, who's not getting reps, who's dinged up, who's not dinged up, what the financial status is, because there could be some cap cuts as part of these training camp releases. This is what they're doing. So if you're asking me, are the Giants interested or keeping their radar on for such a player? Of course. They know they're a good team, Craig. The Giants may be only a tweak or two away from being a bona fide, deep playoff team. They would be foolish not to be alert to their radar for a player or two. Like in 1990, okay, when they picked up Dave Duerson after the final cuts. They picked up Johnny Cooks, after the season started. These guys were important to that team winning a Super Bowl. When you're this good, when you're the New York Football Giants and you know you've got a playoff caliber roster, these little tweaks that we're talking about could be the difference between going an extra round or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's always that one role guy that comes in and makes a big play somewhere, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Duerson had that big play against the Colts and Jeff George, if you remember, in the RCA Dome that season.
We could go on. The R.W. McQuarters, the Everson Walls.
Sure.
Those guys always come in.
Right. So here's the thing. Are the Giants interested in maybe picking up a piece or two? They'd be foolish not to. If they think that they can get a piece that is going to ratchet up this roster another notch, do it.
I took this off of Twitter today, so I can't take any credit for this. This was Mason's tweet, and I didn't realize this, and it's the only thing that I'll bring up that's not positive today is Ojulari will be the only guy left, last man standing from the 2021 draft class. Have you ever thought about that? We've had such good drafts over the years, but it just turned out that 2001 class, Ojulari will be the last man standing. So I'm hoping Ojulari has a great year and he stays healthy, because him and Tibbs together make a great duo. We need Ojulari to be healthy and stay on the field.
Well, then I guess you're a reader, you're a viewer, whatever he is. I guess he believes that Gary Brightwell and Aaron Robinson are not going to be long for the team.
Correct. I
Right.
think that's
Well, I think that's pretty foolish, because both guys are very talented players. Again, Brightwell is another guy who right now has been sore and he's been nicked up, but he's another guy who plays special teams and who they really like on coverage units. He also can play power football. He's the biggest, bulkiest of the running backs in the room, so he can help. We saw what he did, if you remember, last year in the 4-minute offense against Green Bay, right? Remember what he did?
Will they carry 5 backs though?
No, they'll carry 4. I don't know what they'll carry. I think they'll carry 4. I've got 4. I've got Barkley, Breida, Brightwell, and Gray.
Okay.
But Gary Brightwell absolutely has talent to play in this league, and so does Aaron Robinson. So I would take exception to your reader.
And like your point, Paul, some of these guys are going to get snatched up, right? Because the roster is deep with talent. Some of these guys are going to be starting for another team in the next couple of weeks. It could very well happen to some of them, right? Because you can't you can't take them all.
There's no question. I mean, I'll give you an example of some guys who are not on my 53, but I know that they can play. Jamison Crowder can play in this league. We mentioned him before. There's no doubt about that. Tommy Sweeney is an accomplished blocking tight end.
Yep.
Now, a lot of teams don't want a blocking tight end anymore. They want to play video game Xbox football. But if you want a blocking tight end, Tommy Sweeney is a quality player. He can do that.
Yes.
I'll give you a couple more guys. Well, Darnay Holmes is going to be in this league. If the Giants do cut him, he's going to get a job. I mean,
DeVito.
Who else?
DeVito.
I've got Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux is healthy for a change. Shane Lemieux can play.
You better knock on wood.
Shane Lemieux gets cut, now I would keep him on my 53. But if he gets cut, he's going to get another job somewhere.
Yeah,
they got guys.
You better knock on wood with Lemieux, because this is usually the week he gets hurt every year. You better
I know. But yes, the Giants have guys who are going to get cut. And again, I hope very much that they'll wind up on the practice squad.
Paul, can I backtrack with you?
Before we got a little off track, I wanted to mention to you the second thing that does concern me going into week 1, and that is special teams. I've been saying on Big Blue Kickoff since February, when the Giants free agent list came out and it was obvious who they were going to bring back and who they weren't. If you looked at the top 8 guys on the Giants punt and kickoff return units, at least half of them were not going to be back this year, which meant they were going to have to rebuild their kick coverage units. And you guys understand this. I know you do. You can lose games if you don't cover kicks properly. It is a big deal. I would hate to see the Giants have a playoff caliber 22 on offense and defense and then wind up losing games because special teams did not do its job. And this isn't about T-Mac, Thomas McGahee, the special teams coordinator. He's well respected around the league. I've known him a long time. He's one of the best in the business. He's been around here now for several coaches. Okay? This is not about him. This is about how much depth do you have that guys are also capable of becoming really good special teams guys. And as I sit here today, I can't tell you who the Giants special teams gurus are going to be. Who's going to be that Devin Thomas? Who's going to be that Renee Thompson? That David Tyree? That Jaquan Williams? Who's going to be that Keon Crossan?
Mark Herzlig.
Mark Herzlig, yeah. How about Zach Diassi?
Yeah.
Who's going to be those guys?
Chase Blackburn.
Chase Blackburn. I'll open the floor. You guys tell me. Who are the special teams gurus on this roster?
Chris, you're the roster expert. Give me something.
Like Paul alluded to before, I think Gary Brightwell. I mean, in terms of his no, kickoff returns, big deal. Everybody kicked in the end zone, but
Who's that, Mike? Cam Brown?
Cam Brown, yeah.
I mean, Cam Brown.
I don't have Cam Brown on my 53.
Wow.
No. So Gary Brightwell would be a guy that I'd want on that special teams unit.
Yes, I agree. He's on my 53, and that's one of the reasons why I'm keeping Carter Coughlin. Because I think Carter Coughlin is going to have to be one of those special teams gurus.
Is he better than Cam Brown on special teams, though?
What's that?
Is Coughlin better than Cam Brown as a special team player?
Carter Coughlin is much better in the standard defense.
Yes, okay. And I'm so glad he said that, because truth, here's the difference. Carter Coughlin, was a defense end in college, converted to inside linebacker and special teams. In a pinch, the guy can play outside with his hand in the dirt, or he can play in a pinch now, and he can play inside and special teams. Cam Brown has shown no acumen to play in the defense and contribute, where when you turn on the lights, Carter Coughlin will rush the quarterback. He can back up Okereke, you know what I mean? Or you could, and again, in a pinch, if you ask him to put his hand in the dirt, he can rush kind of like a Tollefson was, from the outside. So Carter Coughlin, like Paul alluded to, and Chris and I were talking about this last week, he just has more versatility. You got to keep Carter Coughlin over Cam Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, we look at a Brightwell who does play coverage. We look at Coughlin, who does do special teams coverage. But these guys do not measure up to the level of the fellas I just rattled off before.
Yeah, and I would throw Jason Pinnock in there as well if he's not starting as a safety. Jason Pinnock.
I think Pinnock is going to be a starting safety. Yeah. Therefore, you probably do not want him on special teams coverage.
Right. Looks like he's taking the job.
You may wind up having to put Belton out there. Mm-hmm. I know from watching the last couple of games, Flott has been a guy who they've been putting out there, but he's not the biggest, bulkiest guy in the world. And while I love his speed and I love his length, even for a small guy, he's got long arms and he's certainly aggressive enough. He made a terrific shoestring tackle on kick coverage in Detroit 2 weeks ago. You may remember the play.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the kind of play you need, you see. But I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up over 17 games to be able to do that. You're asking a lot out of a guy like that. That's why McLeod, to me, is very important, because I think he's been nicked up now. He might be the best coverage guy that they've got on this roster.
Okay.
And right now he's nicked up. And again, he's not David Tyree. He's not Renee Thompson. He's not Mike Thomas. He's not those guys. He's just not.
Yeah. What's Pinnock? Not to digress, but I think Chris, you said Pinnock. He got injured. I'm assuming he's going to be okay.
Yeah, we believe so. I mean, he didn't practice. He's got a sore leg. Did not practice today. We don't think that's anything serious, but again, the Giants, just like every other NFL team during training camp, they don't have to divulge very much in terms of injury reports. That only happens once the regular season starts.
Keeping it close to the vest. Makes sense. Yeah. Go ahead, Truth. You want to jump in here?
Yeah. I want Paul to finish with his 53 on the offensive line. I think that's important to know who those back-end guys are going to be. I think we all know who the starting five could be.
I've got 9 offensive linemen. Thomas, Bredesen, Schmitz, Glowinski, and Neal. I've got Pert, Izudu, McKeithen, and my last spot was really between Shane Lemieux and Tyree Phillips. Now, Phillips has been nicked up. Mm-hmm. Lemieux is healthy. I've always had a soft spot for Shane Lemieux, and so I decided that I would keep Lemieux. Now, that's going to leave me very thin at tackle.
Yeah.
The problem is Tyree Phillips is nicked up right now. So, I mean,
no Jack Anderson.
Does that mean you keep Corey Cunningham? Because right now he's the only guy who can play tackle.
Didn't they bring another guy in who played another?
Yeah, they brought in Davenport, but that to me, I don't see that as a viable solution.
Okay, well maybe that guy will be on a waiver pickup.
Anderson's not a tackle.
No. I'm saying that maybe they'll get a tackle during the waiver when teams get cut.
Well, Mike, here's what I would ask you. the Giants are very low on the waiver claim because they made the second round of the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
Do
26.
you honestly believe that there's going to be a decent left tackle getting to them on waivers? That's a very hard position to claim anybody, especially when you're going to be so low on the list. Chances are you're not going to find anybody who's better than the guys they have right now.
No, that's a possibility. Yep.
And is Pew? I know Pew's been in the
Pew.
media recently looking for a job. Is that something that the Giants are potentially going to entertain?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I mean, look, Justin Pugh to me was a satisfactory tackle when he got here because he was always better suited to guard, but he handled the tackle spot as well as he could, again, out of team need.
Mhm.
At this stage of his career, is he capable of giving you some snaps at tackle? I don't know the answer to that. He has gone through a litany of injuries during his time in the NFL. And in fact, that's one of the reasons the Giants didn't bring him back when he went free agent to Arizona, because he was looking for a bigger payday. And with the list of injuries that he had, there was no guarantee how long he was going to last, how many games he would play, and at what level would he play at.
Yeah.
So, I'm inclined to think that's probably not a move that the Giants would make. But again, what are your alternatives right now? Because Hurt is your only legit third tackle with Phillips being hurt. Cunningham to me is not better than Pert. And I don't see Davenport as a viable solution. And we already know that Wyatt Davis is a very bad experiment at tackle. That did not work out well in Detroit at all. And I don't think we should ever see that again.
It wasn't his fault.
No, it was not.
Right.
Look, again, he took one for the team.
Yeah,
right?
he did.
That's
Yep.
that's like the center fielder who comes in and pitches the ninth inning and gives up 10 runs. I mean,
yeah, but I think they may keep him and put on the practice squad. Davis, I can see that.
Guard. He can. Yeah, no, he's all right.
Yeah, that would not shock me.
Yeah,
no, that would not shock me at all.
Somebody's going to get cut.
Yeah, it's going to be guys, and someone's going to be disappointed. It's going to be a player you like, someone you never expected. That's how it goes. So it goes.
Well, if Phillips gets healthy in the next week, okay, if he gets healthy in the next week, chances are he may beat out Lemieux because of his positional versatility at tackle. Because the Giants obviously are stronger at guard than they are at tackle in terms of the depth chart.
Yeah, they are.
Right.
Which is ironic because it's been, nothing but shuffling cards between Azudu, Bredesen, Glowinski, Lemieux. It's been nothing but shuffling cards there. Now we're talking about the depth at guard. It's pretty funny. I think it's come full circle.
Look, this offensive line, I don't have much doubt about the ability of the guys in the room. I think they're good enough to be at least a middle-of-the-pack offensive line, if not better. I really do believe that. But that's strictly a talent evaluation. That doesn't mean they're going to gel because they need to. You guys know that. If they don't gel, it won't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, you need the continuity.
But I'm optimistic because at least I know that the raw talent is upgraded from any of the recent offensive lines that they've had in the building.
Yeah. Now you got to build the continuity.
Correct. And you got to stay healthy. Evan Neal missing a week and a half because of concussion protocol did not help.
Changing gears on you, Paul. I was asked today to ask you this, and I thought it was a pretty neat question. I think her handle was like NYGIANTSRUSH, and she wanted me to ask you about the turf. How is the new turf? Do they like it? Do you notice a difference? Anything spectacular about it? Because, of course, when there's nothing to talk about in June, we all spend hours, talking about the turf because there's nothing to talk about, right? There's nothing to talk about. So that was a very, a big move. So was wondering if, what's your thought on the turf?
This is what it's come to, right, fellas?
Yes.
All right. I'll give you my firsthand account on it because being on all the different fields around the league, I will tell you The turf is a bit softer and a bit spongier than the old turf that was in the stadium and in the field house. Okay. Um, I don't know if that's because the pellets are fresh and they haven't been crushed down, but I suspect it's also because of the type of weave that the turf is. Now, the only guy that I talked to about it today was Sterling Shepard. Shep said turf is turf. He thinks it may be a little thicker, and by that, I know what he means. The blades of plastic grass seem to be a little thicker than the blades in the other AstroTurf, and they also seem to be perhaps a little bit longer, a little plush, if you will.
Okay.
You know, if you want to talk about carpet, it's kind of like a little more plush. That's the best way I can describe it. But he said, you know what? It's still turf. Turf is turf. And to him, it really doesn't make any difference. And this is a guy who obviously has been hurt on turf before. And he's like, no, turf is turf. It doesn't make much difference.
Yeah.
So in answer to the question, I'm giving you the best firsthand account that I can give you because I've been on both surfaces.
And that's coming from a lot from Shepard, who, like I said, got injured on the turf. So in a non-contact way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear him, you know, he's not like, man, I'm so glad we changed the turf. I did hear Dable say it was better on his back. I think he did say his back isn't as cranky on the new turf.
I mean, fellas, I think if the players could vote, and I'm sure the Players Association has already taken a number of polls on this, they would all like to be on real grass. And I'm not going to lie to you. There are times when perusing the sideline during a game on artificial turf, sometimes my feet are a little sore or my back is a little bit sore occasionally. It happens. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Cool. All right, Chris, jump in.
No, I was just going to say about the turf. I think one of the things with the synthetic grass they're talking about is that you get the release with that those pivots. You know, it seems like that other turf that they had in whatever company that was, you know, that made that type, your foot would get stuck a little bit. This one has supposed to have more release, something to do with the pellets, like you said. So it's going to be a little bit different.
Chris,
in that
if I could tell you what they say, all right, you guys were asking for an eyewitness results account. I don't have much to add to it other than what I've experienced on my own. What they tell you is that this particular blend of turf has fewer seams in it.
Okay.
And that's technically the difference between the older turf and this newer turf. It has fewer seams. So in theory, I put that in quotes.
Yeah.
You'll have less of a chance at getting a cleat stuck.
Yeah.
Because there were fewer seams and the weave is a little bit more plush.
Right. Makes sense. They brought the logo back.
That's the theory.
Yeah, and they brought the logo back on the 50 for the Giants and Jets, so that makes sense. There's no seam, I guess, near. They spray it on. I don't know, but the logo just came back, which was very strange.
Yeah, the logo is painted on with a removable paint that they use a special machine that they drive around like a Zamboni, but instead of resurfacing ice, it's got brushes on the bottom of it like a car wash.
Wow.
Cool.
Oh, very cool.
It brushes off the logo, and then they paint the new one on.
Nice.
I love the way, by the way, they designed the new field and the new insides.
Great.
It looks good.
Looks great.
Paul, when did they get away from turf shoes? There wasn't a lot of grabbing back in the day because they all wore turf shoes. They were above the seams. But then
they used to wear the nubs, is what you're talking about, Craig.
Yeah, I wore nubs.
Yeah, I know. But what happened was, as the old AstroTurf surfaces, which were almost like concrete,
yes, they were.
As they were getting replaced, because that's where the people wore the nubs.
Yep.
As they started to progress and go to the field turf styles that were more mimicking of real grass, guys started to go to more of a cleat.
Yeah.
Because there was more to grab. There was supposedly better traction. Well, the problem is if your footwear gets stuck, you now have the potential for injury.
Like I got a 15-year-old, quarterback son, and we have this debate all the time. I'm like, I wore turf shoes. I wore nubs. you didn't really get caught in the seams, right? And you see a lot of injuries. He's like, Dad, everybody wears cleats. It's these synthetic grasses are an inch thick sometimes.
There you go.
You want better tractions. I'm like, yeah, I know. What the heck do I know? I'm old. What do I know?
Hey, Craig, we played with leather helmets. I mean, let's not hide it.
All right. Not that far. I had bars on my mask. All right. All right, Truth. We're going to wrap it up and let Paul go. You got one more, Truth, or not?
No, I'm just really excited about this season, and I always look forward to these podcasts with Paul. Such great insight he has. So I like what I've heard from him, and I'm looking forward to this year very much.
Yeah, I always stop by to see Paul at least once or twice a year when he's broadcasting. He's always kind enough to come over and say hello. We chatted up a little bit, and he's usually right on. I got to tell you.
Yeah, he is.
He had, those Truth. Remember those 8 balls you used to shake up, and it had the little thing inside it. You know what I'm talking about? What was it called? Magic 8 ball.
The Magic 8 ball.
Yeah, I think when Paul's doing the broadcast, because they're doing the pregame up there in front of the. I come in, I say hi, we chat a little bit, I go in the stadium. I don't like to bother him, but I'm telling you, I ask him one question and he knows the answer like that. I'm telling you, behind the scenes, he's shaking the Magic 8 ball without a doubt. Well, Paul, of course, always a pleasure. I love the fact that we've become friends. You're great to us. Really appreciate it. Arching, you think the team will be ready with 3 preseason games because that's the norm now? Like, are they ready, or is that first game of the year almost like preseason game number 4?
Craig, my answer to that is that September football is not great quality football. Yeah. I still believe that this system that's in place right now, and it's part of the CBA, so it's not going to change. In fact, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be surprising that within 2 years we're going to see 18 games and 2 preseason games.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh!
And more joint practices.
And Chris, see, that's what's interesting about it now, because it was always my opinion, and I've had enough of people tell me that that's probably what's going to happen, that you would wind up having 2 joint practices with 2 different teams, But now, what have we seen in the last couple of weeks? We've seen teams bail out of their second day of joint practices. Yeah. Just today, we had 2 different dual practices totally scrapped. Totally scrapped.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure now where this is going to go. You've got these teams complaining about chippiness, and they can't control their own players because, after all, these are supposed to be grown men, but they act like 5-year-olds, and they can't control themselves. So what are we doing here? Look, Craig. The bottom line is September football is just not great football because these teams are not hardened. They're not properly buttered, and your answer actually has to be taken on a curve within context.
Yes.
Do I think the Giants will be as ready as any team in the league? Absolutely, they will. They've got a coaching staff that's going to make sure that they're going to be as ready as they can be. And there are a lot of other teams in this league that don't have the coaching staff that the Giants have. All right. This is one of the finest coaching staffs in the NFL. So will they be ready? They'll be ready. But will they be as ready as the Parcells and Coughlin teams were? No, they won't, because they haven't had the ability to toughen themselves up for a month and a half.
Yeah. I mean, not to give a shameless plug to Carl Banks' pod with him and Papa, but I did listen to it last week, and Carl was very eloquent in saying, like, that these players, they're just so pampered, and they don't come in mentally tough. Like, they're not ready to play football, and there's just not enough game time ready players because they don't actually, they don't hit, they don't run, they don't actually have that game readiness. And September football isn't as great as it used to be because they're just not ready. Ready from a standpoint of a system, right? The system says they're ready, but physically they're not ready to play. So,
look, Craig, think about this, right? Think about this. You always hear all football people tell you nothing equates to game speed, right?
Yep.
You hear that all the time. Game speed is the only thing that you can do to experience game speed. Nothing else you do will match that. So by definition, if you're only going to play your guys 10 snaps during the preseason, they have not acclimated themselves to game speed yet for the summer. They just haven't. It's impossible to do. And then on top of that, you will always hear when players hold out, you will hear everybody talk about it. Oh, he may be in shape, but he's not in football shape because he hasn't been hit. Well, guess what? Most of your players today haven't been hit either because of the CBA.
Right.
Yeah. No, nobody gets hit into that first kickoff, right?
I mean, this is what we've done. You know, the players union watered down training camp in the offseason to such a degree that it harms the overall product. But it is what it is. It's the world we live in.
It's
so
true.
Everything is relative. The Giants will be ready for the Cowboys. I know they will be as ready as they can be, but it probably won't be a Mona Lisa.
That's true, but we need at least a Lisa. It doesn't have to be a Mona Lisa. We just need a Lisa to show up. Well, look, Paul, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks at the stadium. Me and Chris will pop by. Truth will be on the golf course somewhere down in Carolina as our resident golf pro. So, again, and actually, Mark B says here, Paul is a gem. I'm going to put this on the screen to end the show. It says, Paul is a gem. Met him at camp a few weeks ago. Very gracious and generous with his time. A national treasure. It's very true. We're very, very nice. It's a very nice compliment. And hey, and for
Thank
me,
you.
yeah. And listen, Mark B is always on with us. And Mark, you're right. It's always a pleasure not only to hang out with you, talk to you, get the insight, but you've always been good to us. So we appreciate your time. Yep. And we're going to see you we're going to see you in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, you know, I'm wondering now, you know, Craig, how many Jets fans are going to be at the stadium on Saturday? I mean, they're talking about Aaron Rodgers possibly getting some snaps. You know, those preseason tickets get scattered around. Yep. I wonder. I think it's going to be probably the biggest Giants-Jets exhibition crowd that we have seen in a long, long time.
I will tell you this.
You're right.
Chris is a season ticket holder like me, but I will tell you this, Paul, and you know this from however many years you've been covering the team. It won't be the real fans. It's the tickets that get passed around. It'll be an ugly game in the stands, and it will not be a true representation of Jets and Giants fans.
No, you're right. And I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. I'm very curious about not just the game itself, but I am curious about what the atmosphere is going to be. Because, look, Craig, I went to the Yale Bowl to see the Giants and Jets play back in the day. Okay? So this Giants-Jets preseason game used to be very, very meaningful. It was, I mean, Tarkenton would play 4 quarters in this game. You know, that's how important it was.
Yeah.
You know, and it's lost so much luster over the years. And now, well, maybe there's a little bit of shine back on the football coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Well, thanks, Paul, for hanging out. I'm sure we will bump into each other, maybe squeeze you in during the season if you have some extra time. But always a pleasure to hang out with you. Chris, Truth, we'll see you guys next week. Next week, gentlemen, we have Clem from Barstool Sports on. And again, appreciate everybody hanging out. NYGIANTSRUSH.com. Fantasy football is up. Make sure you register now. And we'll see you guys next Monday.
Thanks again, Paul.